started recording. So welcome everyone to our third Learn It at Lunch program. I apologize for the technical issues, but we're all settled now. So today we're going to have garden tips on producing groceries in your backyard, and our presenters today are Alfred Hall, and it was the former the director of Hugs, and we also have Levi, who is the Butler County coordinator and marketing director of JEE Foods. All right, so they're gonna talk to us a little bit about growing some food today. All right, so Alfred, you want to first start us up?
Sure. As Chelsea said, my name is Alfred Hall. I'm the co-founder of Hamilton Urban Garden Systems, HUGS, here in Hamilton, Ohio. It was co-founded in 2011 by myself and my wife, Patty. I actually just retired from HUGS at the end of this July that just passed. And Michelle Merritt, the chair of the HUGS board, couldn't be here today, so she asked me if I could give this presentation, and I told her I would. Be my pleasure. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about HUGS. We've been around for about 8 years now. And we're all about making the citizens of Hamilton, Ohio, and the surrounding metropolitan area, Butler County, more self-reliant. And the way we do that is we grow food, we distribute food, we teach gardening skills, both traditional and non-traditional, and we provide a place where people can either do community garden with us, although that model might change next year, and we also show them how they can do it at a home. And we're all about creating and sustaining a local year-round local food system, and we grow organically. We use no synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, or pesticides. And we spend a lot of time doing like what I'm doing today, trying to educate citizens and groups on the benefits of a sustainable health system and eating healthier. So that's what we do. As I said, we educate. Lord, since we started, I've probably given, I don't even know, 100 different classes, maybe more, on all kinds of different things that have to do with from ordering seeds to how to do gardening to how to preserve your harvest, just all kinds of classes to all kinds of different individuals, groups, organizations, garden clubs, the city itself. So we just try to educate people on how they can save money and eat healthier by growing their own food organically. We do distribute our what we grow. We don't sell anything that we grow. We started out back in 2012 by we ran a farmers market here in Hamilton for a couple of years, and we did have a booth. But we decided that we should really just give our harvest to people who didn't have access to affordable, healthy food. So we just give it away. And we've given away tons over the last 8 years. We do have a 2.3 acre community garden with a hoop house located at 545 South Front Street here in Hamilton. You're more than welcome to come down and visit us. Bring gloves if you'd like. We'll put you to work, or if you just want to come and check us out, we'll be happy to have you. We work in partnership with Butler County Metro Housing, which has a low income subsidized housing 3-story apartment building on North 6th Street here in Hamilton that has an attached greenhouse to it. And in return for helping them with their residential garden and growing some food and distributing it to them, they allow us to use their greenhouse in the winter. And in the winter, we do grow lettuce and spinach and give it to the residents of the building. And that's where we start all of our seedlings for our garden on South Front Street, as well as our annual plant sale where we raise money to help us offset the costs of water, mowing grass, gasoline, and that kind of thing down on South Front Street. And we have collaborated and partnered with local youth groups, outreach organizations, educational institutions, government agencies, and others. A couple of years ago, we tried to start a year-round market here in town. So I spent some time going through all the people that we've worked with, that has sponsored us, that have collaborated with, and it was well up close to 150 different organizations. So we touched everything from local businesses to food banks to meal centers to youth groups to faith-based organizations. We just collaborate and partner with anyone who is willing and wants to learn about how they can become more self-reliant growing their own food. I couldn't have possibly put all of our partners down, so I just took some time and took a few off of the internet that we work with. You're going to hear from Levi in a little bit from JEE Foods. We partnered with them for the last few years. They've been a great partner. We supply produce to New Life Mission, and since my retirement from Hugs in July, I've actually taken over a 16 raised box garden that New Life Mission has right next to their meal center on South 4th Street, and grew a fall garden for them and harvested radishes, scallions, lettuce, spinach, got some carrots about ready to pull. So we've supported New Life Mission, Serve City over on East Avenue. We've worked with the school department, the meal center at the First Presbyterian Church down on at the corner of South Front Street and High. Of course, Miami University Regionals. They've been a tremendous partner with us from our beginnings in 2012 all the way through the present time. I talked a little bit about Butler Metro Housing and what we do with them. Then I threw some pictures on here of different individuals that we have supplied food for. And I believe in the middle on the far right, I believe that's actually some JEE folks that we partnered with to help distribute meals to some people in the greater Hamilton, Butler County area. So we just try to improve access to local, healthy food. That's what we do. And obviously, besides just getting tomatoes, you help grow community by gardening. It's a very safe, relaxing, great way to break down barriers and learn about different cultures. So the benefits are just way beyond having fresh food to eat. Why do we do it? We want to provide the skills that allow people to grow their own food and live a healthier lifestyle. We had Dr. Z from Miami University who does factual work. She did a couple projects with us, and we took a look at the neighborhood that our community garden is in on South Front Street. It's a 0.63 square mile area, probably got 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people in it. And in that particular 1.63 square mile area backed up by the river. There are no stores in that neighborhood where you can go and buy produce. They don't exist. You can go down to a corner store and buy a bag of chips and a Coke, but you can't go down to the corner store and buy a banana. So we are trying to do our best to bring healthy food to areas of the city and beyond that are called food deserts. They don't have access to fresh produce. So that's one of the main reasons we do what we do. We do provide access to free gardening space, and any plant seeds that we might happen to have, we're happy to give them to our gardeners, and we pay for the water and we have the tools. Excuse me. Basically, all you have to do is show up, and we'll help you grow your own food. We do want to grow food year round. We're a small organization. We do some non-traditional techniques, raised box gardening, and other things that we cover to extend our season. The hoop house that we have on South Front Street actually grows cool weather crops throughout the late fall and into the winter, and then again in very early spring, late winter until the frost, the danger of frost is over, and we can plant outside. So we do grow year round. And our purpose is to build a community that is a better place to live, where you can work with a diverse group of individuals with diverse ideas and ethnic backgrounds, and learn about not only gardening, but the environment and how you can be a better steward of the environment. And we have a chance to play on occasion, but it is a safe place for the residents of the neighborhood to gather and build community and understanding amongst themselves. You would be, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised how much you learn and appreciate people that are outside with you in 95-degree weather with the sun beating down on you, hoeing a row of corn. It teaches you very quickly that by working together, no matter how hot it is, how wet it is, no matter how the pests bother you, that by working together, you can actually turn a tiny little seed into 20 pounds of tomatoes on one plant. So it's been good for us. We're just trying to build community and get good food into the community. Those we serve, community meal centers, food banks, residents of Hamilton, Butler County, outreach organizations, youth organizations, food recovery groups like Levi's, and educational institutions. And I put HYPE on here because HYPE is an organization that Pastor Shack, who is now a member of the Hamilton School Board, started, and her youth group has worked with us over the last 5 years, ever since we've been down on South Front Street. And it's a great program that brings opportunity to the residents in that neighborhood and the youth in that neighborhood to be mentored and learn about how to give back to the community to make the community a better place. I don't have 2020 stats. I can tell you that over the years, there's some years are better than other years when we grow. I always tell somebody, if you're going to commit yourself to a garden, commit to at least 3 years, because I guarantee you one of those years you're going to have a harvest that's not that good, either because of bugs, weather, disease, or all of the above. So over the years, we've distributed literally tons of fresh grown produce that either we grew ourselves and distributed to people who didn't have access to affordable, healthy food, that community gardeners grew themselves and used or gave away to their friends or family or their neighbors, or that we gleaned from other gardens and farms, Miami being one, where at the end of the season, when they go through and harvest, we would go into the field afterwards, and what was left, we could actually collect and use to distribute to meal centers and individuals. So as you can see from this pie chart, in 2019, we either grew, gleaned, and or our community gardeners grew over 3,600 pounds of produce. Some of it was donated to individuals in the neighborhood who just happened to come by, say, hey, do you have any green tomatoes? Hey, do you have any squash, zucchini, whatever. Some was grown and used by the community gardeners themselves. And then a lot of what we do, 1,770 pounds, we actually donated to food pantries and meal centers. And I'm sure that this year, since before I left, I know we had more Hugs growing space under plow or in raised boxes than we have probably had in a long time, or if ever. We've added raspberry bushes, we've added blackberry bushes, we've added strawberries, we've added fruit trees, although the fruit trees aren't producing fruit yet. So I have no doubt that this 3,600 pounds will probably by the time they do the statistics for 2020, be surpassed by what they harvest this year. And this year was extremely hard because of COVID and special challenges that it caused. The ability to get volunteers was not as good as it was in the past, but that just means we had to work harder. So you work harder. I can tell you, I spend 3-4 days of my garden I'm running for the New Life mission, 5 hours a day, but Hugs was a 6-7 day, 8-12 hour day for way too many years. And as I approach 70 very quickly, I'm happy to do 3 or 4 days a week, 5 hours a day, but 6 or 7, 10 hours a day are just too much for the old man to take. So it is what it is. So 3,600 pounds of food. This will just give you an idea of the lives that we touch with where we contribute our healthy food to. Gardeners grow and use a lot themselves. And like I said, they also distribute it to their neighbors and friends and family. JEE Foods over the last couple of years has been someone who has come down and helped us harvest and has been able to last year got 700 pounds of food from us. Then we do citizens, community meal centers. So we try to keep stats to know what kind of impact we are having on the improving the access to affordable, healthy food in and around Hamilton. And we've touched quite a few people in quite a few ways. We weren't really great at keeping records before 2019. We got better in 2019. They're better this year thanks to a data collection system that Miami students developed for us. But as you can see, we grow or glean a little bit of every kind of vegetable that you can think of. And next year, I know strawberries and blackberries and raspberries will also be added to this list because they started to produce this year and we're beginning to get harvest this year. But as you can see, everything from watermelon to sweet potatoes, everything from 364 pounds down to a half a pound. So a lot of different kinds and varieties of fresh, organically grown, local food that was not available and would not have been available if Hugs did not exist. And basically, that's an overview of Hugs. I can tell you that you're more than welcome to go to Hugs' Facebook page. They're always looking for volunteers. There's pictures and details and gardening tips and you name it up on that Facebook page. We also have a website that Levi helped us start to recreate. So we're there. We're there to serve the community, and we look forward to maybe seeing you down there to see what's going on. And in a nutshell, that's what Hugs is and does. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
All right, thank you, Alfred. If anyone has any questions for Alfred, they can put them in the chat.
If I don't know the answer, I'll just make it up. So.
Yeah. Not seeing anything so far. All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, they can save them for later at the end of the presentation. Levi, let's see. Are you on the presentation one?
Yes, that'd be
Yeah, okay, cool. Let's see. Okay.
I apologize. Could you make it the other one? Sorry.
Oh yeah, the other one. Okay. See, and Alfred, let's see. I wonder if Levi, if you go up to the bar, it says share and it says my screen. Let's see if that will switch you over.
All right, so our one of our computers crashed. Could you change it back to the presentation one?
Yeah. I think you're muted, Levi.
All right, are we good to go now? Can everyone see?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about the technical error there. But my name is Levi, and I'm joined by Sophia Lunsford and Elena Mead, and we are three of the team members from JEE Foods. We are a high school student-ran nonprofit organization in Ross, Ohio, and we're working to address the issues of food waste and food insecurity in our community. And along with the issue of food deserts, which Mr. Hall touched on, is the inability to get fresh produce close by to you. And so we're just going to dive into the issue that we're addressing, which we kind of already touched on, of and started the years ago just to see worldwide that community and one thing is you need internet, and so turn it over how that we got started. And so our team started 2 years ago, and our team
Levi?
in a T classroom. Yes.
You're breaking up really badly.
We're breaking up.
Yeah. You guys have a good connection on your side?
We should.
Okay.
Right. Is it still breaking up?
No, I can hear you a little bit now. Yeah.
All right. What was the last part that was the clearly heard?
When you started going into with the apple on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go back. Oh. All right. At this point in the presentation, we were talking about people that amount of
It's
good.
yeah, it's going on and off again. I wonder
Okay.
if
I'll
you
just
close
switch.
that other window you had open, if that would help.
We'll switch internet to a more better one as well. Bear with us.
Okay. Yeah.
Any recommendations on a better internet? All right, we'll try that and see if is that better?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we apologize. We're high school students, so we're in our high school, and the internet is spotty, of course, in the school.
Totally get that.
Right. We'll back up. So what we were talking about before we started cutting out was the big issue of food insecurity worldwide and the issue of food waste. And so globally, there's about 420 million people that are food insecure, which basically means they don't know where their next meal is coming from. And locally, it's around 15% here in Butler County. And so a lot of people think that that's because the food system isn't producing enough food, which is a logical assumption. However, once you start to really unpeel and look back at the food system, you realize that about 40% of the food that is produced is wasted. And this occurs all throughout the food system.
Levi, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. Were you wanting to share your PowerPoint?
Yes, yep, we're working on that.
Okay, yeah. All right, sorry. There you go.
There we go now.
Just about. Still connecting. Got a black screen, right? There we go. There you go.
All right. All right. Okay. For statistics setting in worldwide. And that doesn't inspire people, then there's since we're connected problem that was just started about 2 years ago across high school, and that's in so Miami Regional's campus in Hampton.
Hey, Levi. It's jumping again. We can't hear it.
Go presentation. It appears that
I wonder if it's just the PowerPoint
that's making it stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can go PowerPoint free.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah. It happens to all of us, I'm sure, throughout March and throughout it, everyone's had experiences. So.
Oh yeah.
All right. So we were talking. We started 2 years ago at a Ross High School classroom. We worked globally with the team in South Korea on the issues of hunger and poverty worldwide. And so we started looking at global issues on a global scale because our teacher at the time, an instructor, Mr. Tom O'Neill, always told us to have a global perspective and look at the issues that are currently occurring in your town and on the global scale and see how you can find a solution that will work both ways. And so we worked with students in South Korea on the issues of hunger and poverty. And so what we found was there's a lot of food out there and we just needed to rescue it. And this was 2 years ago before the food rescue movement kind of gained traction and people started to actually look at the food waste landscape. But from there, we were able to present at the United Nations back in January or February in 2018 of our mission. And from there, we had 3 or 4 students at the time we first started. At the United Nations presentation, we had 7. And now 2 years later, we're at about 13 to 14 student members, and we've made big strides in the community. So originally we started as a school organization, but then the community started latching onto our idea. And so right now we're actually a registered nonprofit organization. And so now I'm going to turn over to Ms. Lunsford to talk more about the JEE Foods team, how we operate, and then we'll go into our operations and then where we're going from here.
So obviously, if we want to change the world, we have to have people who are willing to do it, and we have to be able to teach those people how to do it, and we have to have a very organized system. So as of now, we have, as Levi said, 13, 14 members. Those members are spread out into 5 different departments: human resources, information technology, operations, marketing, and finance. Our goal is to meet the needs that are specified in the intellectual dimension of wellness. Our goal is to take the average student and to provide them with more knowledge and skills that will help them to not only benefit themselves, but further the success of our company as a whole. Now, we do that by teaching them more skills involving presentation, communication, food preparation, distribution, proper food handling, and we vastly expand their knowledges on issues such as poverty, hunger, food safety, and community. And Elena will further expand on how and what we do with those skills.
Yes, so as Ms. Lunsford was talking about, one of our major points that we do is food rescue. And to rescue food and then transform it into a substance that is able to maintain its nutritional value and elongate its shelf life. It's a three-step process for this. We first rescue food from restaurants, grocers, businesses, anything that would waste food we're able to rescue from. Most recently, we've rescued food from gleanings at the Miami Farm for Food Institute up by you guys, and we've taken the food that they spoiled or has minor bruises, and we're able to take this back to our facilities and make spaghetti squash, mashed spaghetti squash, or zucchini noodles, or even we've taken apples and processed them into apple chips. And after this process of upcycling, we then are able to take this food and deliver it back into the community to those who are in hunger. So we do this through both outreach organizations and individual donations. We've not been able to do as many individual donations recently due to the pandemic, but we've been able to do drive-by, drop-offs, and pickups. And we've also been working with a lot of our organizations on their level to distribute food to their outreach people in their community. But as we were researching ways to solve the issues of hunger and poverty in collaboration with our team, IBECA team from South Korea, we came across the idea that the real issue of poverty stems from the fact of the lack of education. To combat this, we've developed our 3-seat approach of jobs, education, and where our name comes from. We allow low-income individuals to come into our facility, need on-the-job training, as well as food safety certification, to then further their knowledge of the food industry and get jobs further on down the road. This not only helps them to become more financially sustainable, but helps to remove the cycle of poverty in our community.
So Ms. Mead touched on a lot how we're trying to end the root core of poverty, but we're doing it through this method of food. So we're meeting the immediate need, but also providing longevity for the community, which is something that everyone wants a pathway out of poverty. And if we can address 2 issues at once, why not do it? And so to date, we've rescued right over 650,000 pounds of food. And the majority of that, right around 600,000 pounds of that, has happened just within the last 3 months. So we are doing food boxes in the community, working with organizations like she mentioned, and also direct to individuals. So we like to consider ourselves a hybrid between a food pantry and a food bank because we're targeting both. And so that talks about how we're solving intellectual problems and meeting the physical dimensions of wellness, but we also target the environmental dimension of wellness as well. And so when you think of food waste, there's a lot of environmental factors that can be caused to it. When food goes and sent to a landfill currently, it breaks down and releases a methane gas. Methane is one of the biggest contributors to global warming. And so if we're able to get rid of food that is perfectly fine, but still ending up in landfills, then obviously reduce our carbon footprint. And you're also saving landfill space to let the forestry improve. And so JEE Foods, we're really passionate about teaching students the impact they can have in their community, but also teaching them about sustainability. And that also ties into the environmental. And so we're implementing a lot of sustainability projects here at Ross High School. And so we conduct food audits in our cafeteria. So we're getting into the trash cans, we're weighing the food that's being wasted so we can tell the students the impact of their food. We've helped the cafeteria switch over to compostable trays. We've added recycling, got in more bins, worked with the Butler County solid waste recycling. And then we're also adding compost to our high school within the next few weeks. And so the district of Ross Local Schools and Butler Tech, who we also partner with, have been very receptive to the idea of student change and sustainability world across our different sectors. In addition to feeding the community, we also are taking a look inside of our own school district to the students that might not start their day off with a nutritious meal. And so there's been many studies done about not eating breakfast in the morning relates to lower test scores and not as much attentiveness, and once again, the physical dimension of wellness. And so we opened a coffee bar inside of our high school that provides breakfast to students in the morning, free of charge to students that are low income. And so after opening the coffee bar in about a year, we saw an over 40% increase in students eating breakfast every morning. And so we've continued that this year. We're seeing even bigger growth than that, and students are latching onto the idea. So it provides funding for the organization, but what we're really hoping to do is target the need for food inside the school landscape. Right now, during the pandemic, as many things have changed, the need for food hasn't. And so we mentioned that we've done about 600,000 pounds of food within the last 3 months, and we do that through distributions once a week on Saturdays, and we're getting 30,000 pounds of produce that is being bought off farms that would maybe have to throw it away across the country, but instead they're able to take an income home to the family because the government is stimulating the economy that way. And so we're providing dairy, meat, and produce. We focus on the My Plate, which is a government outliner saying the different meal groups that everyone should have and then how that will create a healthy lifestyle. And so in the food pantry scene, you don't see that a lot of times. You may see your canned foods that you might see, or you just hear the narrative or Twinkies sitting on the shelf or something. But we're out to change that narrative and provide fresh food to people in need. And so working with these nonprofits, we're able to do that. And we're just teaching students about that issue. We've served to date around 20,000 individuals in some capacity, and we've gone over the state lines. And so these past 3 months, we are now working in Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. It's about a 100-mile radius out of our Ross High School, and we've contributed about 70,000 hours of community service in total. And so we're not only helping the community, but teaching students about business, because as Ms. Lunsford mentioned, they're doing every aspect of a business they would do. And so one of the big things that people always ask us is how they can get involved, because it's a relatively new concept of food rescuing. And one of the biggest needs that we have in our community, since we are high school students, is actually going and picking up food from the restaurant or the grocery store that's about to throw it away. And so we use an app called Food Rescue US, and it allows any community member to go on there and claim a rescue, or say, I'm going to drive my car to this restaurant, pick up the food, and drive it back to the nonprofit receiving it. And so you can schedule it to whatever availability or flexibility that you have in your schedule. And so that's one of the biggest ways to get involved in our community. This year, we're targeting to hit 1 million pounds of food in the community, and we're on pace to do that. And so you'll be seeing a lot more of JEE Foods in the community as we continue to grow. And so we're happy to open the floor to any questions anyone has. I know there's a lot of stuff, sustainability, food rescue, that we covered. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Levi and all. Let's see if anyone has any questions. You can put them in the chat.
Does look like there's a question from DJ, and that one's directed to Alfred.
Yeah, okay. You still on here, Alfred? I think you might be muted.
I'm here.
All right, we have a question from DJ. It says, what types of fall vegetables can be grown in the area? I'm assuming it's in Hamilton.
Say once again, please.
What type of fall vegetables can be grown in this area?
There's a variety. One of the, like I said, what I planted, when I retired from Hugs, I went over to New Life mission and started cleaning out their boxes in mid-August. By the end of August, I had 13 of the 16 beds cleaned out, and I had enough seed to plant about half of those. So what I planted, and it'll grow, although it's a little late in the season now, unless you use row covers or some way to protect your crops or you can grow indoors. I planted scallions, which will actually overwinter, except I pulled them. I planted carrots, which again could overwinter, but I'll pull them. I planted lettuce, I planted spinach, and I planted radish. So carrots, lettuce, scallions, spinach, and lettuce will all grow in the fall. You have other things that you can plant like kale, broccoli. There's a variety of cool weather crops that you can plant in the fall as well in the very early spring to get a jump on your garden. Easiest way that I would say to find out what you can grow in our zone, which is zone 6A, Southwest Ohio, is just get up on the internet and Google cool weather crops for zone 6A. And they'll give you a list of all the different things that you can grow in the fall. The only thing you have to be careful of when you do that is some crops will not take a frost at all. If there's a frost, they're dead. End of story. There's crops that if you plant, if the soil's not warm enough, they're not going to germinate and they're not going to grow. So it's very important to understand how long it takes for your seed or seedling to get to maturity and how much time it is before the expected first or last frost. And in this zone, it's October 15th to May 15th to be on the safe side, although every year it seems to be getting a little bit longer growing season, and you should be okay. But most of your greens, some of your root crops will grow. It's all according to how much time you have before that first frost and whether or not that plant's going to take a frost or not. If it won't, lettuce will. So those are a few that I plant every fall in my garden. But the easiest way is just Google cool weather crops for temperate zone 6A, and you'll get a list of all the.
Yeah, I know during this part of the season, I have a patch of Jerusalem artichokes, or sometimes they're called sunchokes. I read that on the internet that it's actually a native plant here, but I got mine like at Jungle Gyms. They have them in the Asian section. And, I let them grow all season. I cut off all the flowers, and usually by this time of the season, I dig them up, and they're almost kind of like a potato. And they're very popular nowadays in culinary, so that might also be a good idea.
There are so plants like I forgot to tell you, I planted garlic. My garlic I planted was just a week ago. The reason I planted is it's not really going to mature till next June. So there are some things that you can plant in the winter that you can harvest the next spring that the winter's not going to kill. And there are some things, if you're into flowers, that actually need that cold winter weather on the seed when it's in the ground in order for it to germinate next year. Milkweed. So there's a variety. There's more than I'll ever be able to plant in my life. So.
I see in the chat, people are saying that they are very impressed and happy for you guys. I'm assuming for you guys, Levi, and you guys, that you're doing all your work, and it's really awesome.
We had one that was kind of sent privately to us. It was a question, but I think it'd be good to address it to the group too. Their question that they had, it said, you mentioned people getting in their cars and going picking up food for you guys. Is JEE Foods concerned about the carbon emissions that could be happening with that frequent transportation? And if so, are you making any extra efforts to combat that? That's a great question. And so for the past 2 years, we were just doing it maybe once or twice a week. And so the carbon emissions that we weren't they were significant, but it wasn't to a scale where we felt that we needed to take extreme action to do that. Just because we only had 1 or 2 food donors. However, now we are up to 10 food donors and we're making a lot more runs. And so we actually just had a meeting about this the other day when looking at sustainability, and we're going to start a carbon offsetting program. And so our operations team is now doing the math of how much carbon is getting it released per mile that our food runners are picking it up. And then our organization every year will work with the Arbor Day Foundation or an equivalent organization to pay to have trees planted to reduce the carbon. Because we can't really do it directly with our volunteers' cars. We encourage them to use hybrid and electric, obviously, but we can't do it ourselves. But by taking this route and planting forests to offset it, then we can do it. So once again, just thinking sustainability about the environment.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just muted.
I would just, Levi, I would say also something I've been looking at, I'm looking for a grant to do it that could, I know where you're located, but that I'm thinking about trying to start here in Hamilton is there's a couple young entrepreneurs who started a service where they have tricycles, huge tricycles, and they actually go around to local restaurants on those tricycles, if you will, and they collect food waste that they carry to their composting station that they have on their garden site. And I'm looking for a grant right now. I'd like to start a pilot program where the local restaurants, it's not going to be me that's going to get on a tricycle, but somebody can actually get on a tricycle, zero carbon, and pick up their 5-gallon bucket of waste and leave them a new bucket for the week in very small pilot program. But there was a lot of effort actually around, I forget, they're called pedals something, but I know it's harder for you where you're located in your distribution area, but if somebody on the line is interested in starting a program with local restaurants or grocery stores using a pedal bike, I could use a little bit of composting material over on South 4th Street. I'd be happy to take it.
That's an idea. Any more questions right now? All right. Alfred, did you have any gardening tips that you wanted to go over from?
I have a presentation. Let me just
Okay.
pull.
All right, let me. There we go.
You got me?
Yep. Let's see. No, let's try share up in the bar and then my screen.
All right, let me go back here. Oh, I lost you, Roy. Every time I go out of well, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? For some reason I lost you. Let me see if I can get you back real quick.
Is that you lost the whole window or I'm just?
Yeah, I lost the window. I don't know why.
Oh, did it get minimized?
You might have, but I don't see you anywhere. But, just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
All right, come on. Stop giving me in trouble. Now it's asking me for an event password, of course. Where you got minimized to?
The only place you could really be minimized is, either like down in the bar. You see,
No, I don't see you.
as a tab.
I'm looking for you, but I don't see you. No, you got to be there because I can hear you. But you sure aren't showing up. You still there?
Yeah.
No, you're not there anywhere. Let's try this one. Let's try this one.
Okay. If you have a search bar at the bottom of your desktop,
No, mine is set up a little bit different.
okay.
Everything shows, there you are. I'm afraid if I switch off though, I'm gonna share my screen.
There we go.
And then I'll go to the presentation. You got me?
Yep, I got you.
Cool. Just had to find you. All right, so I'm going to go through a few vegetable gardening tips with you. There's a lot of different kinds of gardening tips. I'm going to talk basically about what I've learned over the last 12 years that I've been doing larger scale gardening. I don't like to follow instructions. When all else fails, I still won't read the instructions. That's just the kind of guy I used to be. But I found out once I started gardening that was not a good idea. So I'm gonna talk about basic gardening tips that you can use to increase the likelihood that you're going to have a successful harvest. Now, I have other gardening tips of all different kinds. Hugs has all kinds of gardening tips. We have all kinds of training sessions on gardening tips. And you'll find those either on the Hugs Facebook page. And after I retired from Hugs, I started my own little Facebook page where I throw out some gardening tips every now and then, everything from how to close your garden down to starting your garden up. So, and everything in between. So I want to talk more about paying attention to detail when you're gardening, because that's the best tip I can give you. I do all kinds of different gardening. I garden inside under glass. I don't know if you can hear it, but in the back of me right now, I have a 10-gallon aquarium with 6 fish in it that feeds every 15 minutes the fish poop, the ammonia from the fish poop up into clay pellets where I'm growing lettuce that I'll be eating in about a week from now. So everything from inside to raised boxes, to straw bales, to pallet gardening, to row and hoe gardening. I do all kinds of things. Grow vertical, grow in grow bags, you name it. So the thing I think you need to understand is that if you follow the instructions and you pay attention to your garden, you're going to notice when something isn't right. If it's right, you probably won't even notice it. But if something all of a sudden changes, if the looks of a leaf changes, or a plant looks wilty, or you see some daggone bug you have no clue what it is show up in your garden, if you pay attention, then you'll be able to garden better and get a better harvest. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this little section. When I first gardened, I just thought it was go out and throw some seeds in the ground and they'll grow and I'll have these huge tomatoes and everything's going to be fine. And I'll sit back and watch TV while they grow and I'll check on them every now and then and things will be great. I never really gave any thought to the planning portion of gardening. And I can tell you, planning your garden is a huge benefit. So one of the tips I would give you is before you ever plant a seed in a pot or a seed in the ground, you need to plan what you're going to grow. And you have to understand, if I'm going to bring it outside to plant it later, where am I going to plant it and how am I going to plant it? Do I have a place in the garden, in my yard or on my balcony or wherever I'm going to garden to put something? How much space do I have? How much sun do I have? Am I going to use a raised box, or am I going to use a pot, or am I going to use row and hoe? So you have to think all those kinds of things out. And you also have to plan out how much time do you actually have to. I'm retired, so I can spend as many hours or as few hours in the garden as I want. But there's a certain number of hours that I have to spend to maintain my garden in a healthy manner so I get a good harvest. If you have a full-time job, you don't have time to spend maybe 3 or 4 days a week, 5 hours a day in the garden. So you have to plan your garden based on the amount of time that you're going to have to spend on tending your garden. And then what are you going to do with the harvest? Are you going to just eat it as it goes? Are you going to dry it? Are you going to freeze it? Are you going to can it? Are you going to give it away? What are you going to do with your harvest once you begin to harvest your produce? So there's a planning portion that you really do need to think about before you start a garden of any kind. So you can't really plant a garden unless you know something about the plants that you're going to plant in your garden. Common mistake that many people make is they do not understand what it takes to grow a tomato or a carrot or lettuce or nasturtium flowers. So you have to understand certain basic things about your plants. And the easiest way to do that is to study it. There's many books you can get up on the internet. There's an internet site called Harvest to Table that I use a lot for my own edification, because they have everything from plant fact sheets to everything that you could possibly, how to preserve, how to look for disease, the kinds of varieties to buy and everything, but there's a lot of detail. There's some basic information that you need to know about your plants. How tall are they going to get? What is their breadth going to be? How much space do I need between rows? How much space do I need between plants? Do they need full sun? Can they survive in partial sun? How much water should I add? How long is it going to take before I really see them germinate? You can get very impatient on things like sweet peppers, which take a long time to germinate. And you'll think, oh, gee, they're not going to come up. They're not going to come up. They will. Just be patient. And you're going to say, well, gee, now I got pepper plants. When the hell am I going to have peppers? Well, it takes time for peppers to mature. So those are some of the kinds of things that you need to understand. The basics on do I need sun? Don't I need sun? How much water does it need? How much room should I have between them? Do I have to trellis them? How long should I expect it to be before I can get fruit? And then there's other things that you also have to understand. What's the pests that normally bother those plants? And if you get those pests, what's it going to do to your plant? And the same with disease. So Harvest at Table is a very good place, and there's other places that has all that information on it. It'll tell you what the pH of the soil should be. It'll tell you whether you can grow it in sandy soil. It'll tell you, gee, hornworms are going to attack it or not attack it. Gee, if you get mildew, it's going to look like this, and this is how you take care of it. So know your plants that you want to plant. My other comment would be, grow like you want to eat. Grow what you like to eat. If you don't like to eat it, I personally don't grow it. I'll try some different things on occasion, but I'm a basic salad guy. Cucumbers, carrots, scallions, peppers, radish, those kinds of things. And start with plants that are easy to grow. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I've killed a lot of plants. There are some plants that take less time, energy, and effort to maintain than others. So if you're new to gardening, start with something that's fairly easy to grow. Carrots, green beans, lettuce, cucumbers, spinach, tomatoes, the list goes on. There are plants that are fairly easy to grow. I suggest you start with those. And like I said, grow what you like to eat. Don't overplant. If you are by yourself and the only person you're trying to feed is yourself, and you put 3 tomato plants in to grow tomatoes, you will never eat all those tomatoes. You will never preserve all those tomatoes. Because the average tomato plant will grow anywhere from 12 to 20 pounds of tomatoes, a plant. So again, know your plants, but grow like you want to eat. Don't plant too much and grow stuff that's easy. Then you got to ask yourself, well, what kind of gardening techniques will I use? And you can use row and hoe, you can use raised boxes, you can use containers, you can grow in straw bales. There's a lot of different ways to grow food. You can grow hydroponically, you can grow aquaponically, you can grow aeroponics. I mean, there's just a myriad of ways to grow. So decide, am I going to, row and hoe is the cheapest to start with because you need seeds, water, sun, and a hoe, maybe a tiller. Raised boxes are a little more because you have to buy the wood, and I don't use soil, I use a grow mix. So decide what it is you're going to grow. Less space, then you want to use a more intense gardening type like raised boxes or containers. On my porch, I have a 2x6 raised box that I grew carrots, lettuce, basil, oregano, and whatever else I'm forgetting in all summer long, right on my little patio. So ask yourself, do I have the space? Is my growing season long enough? to do what I want to grow? And then, am I going to get the sun I need? Do I have a place to get water so I can water my plants? Is my soil good? Do I have to add compost? Is it clay? And then, like I said, growing season, May to October, basically around here. So ask yourself those kinds of questions. And then, am I going to purchase my seeds? And where am I going to purchase them? There's a lot of good places you can purchase seeds locally. I tend to buy organic, heirloom, and non-GMO. That's my preference. But know your plants, what technique I'm going to use. Do I have the environmental conditions to do that? Where am I going to get my seeds? And do I have the tools, equipment, and time I need in order to do my garden? I haven't planted seed one yet, so I'm planning. Planting is extremely important. And then once you've decided what you're going to grow and that you've got the space to do it, you have the time to do it, and now you can start really laying out your garden. I use Excel a lot. I'm just familiar with Excel. So this happens to be a 20-foot by 24-foot row and hoe garden, which means that's 480 square feet. And what I do on my Excel spreadsheet is I lay my garden out with the correct spacing. So every one of these squares is 1 foot, 20 foot by 24. And as you can see, I have 2 rows of tomatoes with a trellis. I have some bush beans in front of my tomatoes. I have some cucumbers in front of that. And it's all spaced out. So I know how far in between plants I'm going to plant, how far between rows I'm going to plant. Do I have to trellis or not? If there's any special succession planting, I try to plant so I have harvest all year long. So all those details are right there. And it's simple. What am I going to plant? Where am I going to plant it? How am I going to plant it? How am I going to take care of it? Those kinds of things. Now that I have that, now that I have my plan, now that I have my seeds, now, as soon as the weather allows, I'll go out and plant seedlings or start seeds indoors and move those seedlings outside. The seed packet is your friend. The seed packet is your friend. All the information that you need in order to properly plant seeds, when you should plant them, how far apart, how far the rows should be, what kind of sun requirements they need, are all on that seed packet. So use the directions on the seed packet to help you grow what you're going to grow. And that doesn't matter whether you're doing row or hoe or non-traditional gardening techniques. Some basic concepts are most plants are going to need 6+ hours of sun. You need to know what your plant height and breadth requirements of your plant are. Am I going to have to trellis it or not? You don't want standing water, because standing water, your roots are going to end up sitting in water, and you're more likely to get root rot than not. And keep them away from roots. I planted 20 boxes. I planted them 6 feet away, 8 feet away from these trees down on South Front Street. But lo and behold, those tree trunks, because I watered that soil, and that soil was very rich, those tree trunk root founded. And so stay away from roots. And always plant your tall plants to the north side of your garden, because in our northern hemisphere, the garden slowly sinks to the south towards Australia. And if you plant your plants on the north side of the garden, the taller ones, they won't shade the rest of your garden, and it'll get sun the sun will be on the rest of your garden without interference shade of the other plant. With that said, you can do things like plant tall plants to the east or west, according to which side, whether you get more sun in the morning or afternoon. If you want those plants to shade plants that don't like the sun so much, so you could plant like tomatoes in front of lettuce, and that tomato plant would give that lettuce some shade so that that lettuce wasn't burning up in the sun all day. So unless you're trying to shade your garden, plant your high plants, the taller plants to the north of the garden. Grow vines vertically, keep them off the ground. It helps cut down on disease and pests and takes up less space. So there's just basic concepts that you can use to properly lay out your garden and then plant your garden so that you'll get the best harvest. And no matter where you plant or how you plant, you're going to need to tend your garden. You're going to have to weed it. You're going to have to keep the lookout for disease and pests and treat it if you get it. If you're in a row and hoe, they call it row and hoe for a reason. You're going to get weeds. You're going to have to hoe them out. So you're going to need to hoe. You're going to need to water, harvest, and possibly, if you're going to do succession planting, replant throughout the season. These are just some pictures of different ways. The first guy is hoeing. This is a disease called powdery mildew on, looks like either squash or zucchini plants. I use natural pest control. I use a mixture of garlic and hot peppers and Murphy's oil soap, diluted a little bit, let it steep for a while, drain it into a spray bottle and spray my plants with it. It helps keep insects away. Milk will help with powdery mildew, so the baking powder. There's a lot of remedies that you can use that are not chemical in nature, that are organic in nature to control pests and disease. Actually, I'm starting an insectary down on South 4th Street next year, where I'm going to raise things like ladybugs and predatory wasps and praying mantis and other things that are predatory insects that will help control the insects that tend to eat cultivated crops. Drip irrigation. This shuffle hoe on the bottom left-hand side is the best hoe I ever used. It's really simple to use, and it gets rid of weeds very easily. And I tend to succession plant. I usually have 4 boxes that are 3 by 6 of lettuce planted. I plant one, wait a week, plant another one, wait a week, plant another one, wait a week and plant another one. By the time I get that 4th box in, it takes 28 days for lettuce to mature. The first box is ready to harvest. So I'll take a pair of scissors and cut above the grow line and use that lettuce and let it grow again. That way I have lettuce every week, and I just keep either cutting or replanting and have lettuce all week. Harvesting. Harvest when it's right. I'll use scissors. Harvest above the grow line. I just talked a little bit about that. And if there's enough time to plant another vegetable or the same kind of vegetable again before the season's over, go ahead and do it. And these are just some pictures to show you different things that you can grow and how to cut above the grow line. And succession planting is very good. You can use the same space and grow different crops, and it'll also help you with crop rotation. If you plant tomato plants in the same place every year, they're going to use the same nutrients out of the soil, deplete the soil, and the insects that eat tomato plants or tomatoes will know where your tomato plants are at. They'll go there, they're going to lay their eggs, they're going to overwinter, they're going to come back, and they're going to attack your tomato plants the next year. So by crop rotation, where you take, say, tomatoes and and beans. If you take tomatoes and beans, plant beans in front of tomatoes, and next year plant the tomatoes where the beans are, because beans put nitrogen into the soil and move the beans to where the tomatoes are. They'll put the nitrogen in the soil that the tomatoes took the year before. So crop rotation, continuously planting makes a lot of sense. Preserve what you do not eat or share it with others. I do a lot of drying. I dry a lot of beans, tomatoes. I have a dehydrator that I dehydrate all my hot peppers and herbs with. But drying, freezing, canning are all good ways to preserve your harvest and use them year round. And they taste better than anything you're going to buy in the supermarket. They're not hard to do. It's not expensive. It doesn't take a lot of time. So if you're interested in any kind of specific vegetable and how you can preserve it, again, you can find that on the internet or shoot me a message on my gardening page, and I'll be happy to let you know how I do it. Some of the things that I've learned over the last 12 years, I'm a high-tech electronics guy by career, always had a little garden, but that was more for stress relief than anything else after being in corporate America all day. But over the last 12 years, I've learned a lot of things in my gardening. I've learned how to keep your garden still growing, even if it's wintertime. Green sand, a very good supplement to soil. I've learned how to use that. The importance of keeping a garden journal, either pictures or words or both. If you take a picture of where you planted what this year, and you keep note of which plant variety produced better, you don't have to say, what did I plant last year and how did it do? So journals are something I highly recommend, and it's a very good exercise to use with children. Let them draw a picture, let them use a journal. Conservation and protecting the environment is one of the key things we try to do. So practice smart watering. Garden chores, just because you're not harvesting anymore, there's a proper way to shut down a garden. And then how to attract beneficial insects, butterflies, pollinators, that kind of things, and others. And you'll find other tips both on Hug's Facebook page and on my Facebook page. So in summary, plan and lay out your garden. You got to have seed, sun, water, and healthy soil. Follow the directions on the seed packet. You're going to require sweat, tools, and equipment. You're going to have to tend to your garden throughout its life cycle. And then when you do all that, you get a harvest that you can eat during the year and preserve for overwinter. And it's a great way to build family, community. It's healthy for you. So I'm passionate about it. I love to do it. My wife doesn't like me saying this, but I know I've probably told you before, I'm happiest when I'm in my garden. I love my wife, but I'm happiest when I'm in my garden. So give it a shot. If you commit to it, commit to 3 years, because I guarantee you'll have a year that doesn't do so well. But if you just grow one tomato plant, you're a gardener. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If not, thank you for having me. And I got to go downstairs here in a minute and pick up my grandchildren and play cars all afternoon. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Sorry. So yeah, thank you, Alfred. And I think Levi and his crew jumped off. They must have had something else. And so thank you to them all, and their presentation was very wonderful. If anyone has any questions or anything in the chat for Alfred to answer. to our thank yous. All right. Stop the recording.